Hello, welcome to Don't Tell Me What to Do. What does it look like when someone quietly saves the world? Not on a stage, not with a press tour, not with a brand deal or a TED talk, but in a lab or in a field clinic in Mali, in a hospital ICU during the most terrifying pandemic of our lifetime, just working, just refusing to stop. Today's guest is Dr. Kirsten Lyke. And I have to tell you, she is one of the most accomplished humans I have personally ever known. And she will be the last person in any room to tell you that. Here's what she won't tell you about herself, so I'm going to. Kirsten helped develop the first Ebola vaccine, the first Zika vaccine. She led the phase 1 trials of the Pfizer COVID-19 mRNA vaccine, the shot that went into hundreds of millions of arms. And then, because apparently that wasn't enough, she conceived of and chaired the National Mix and Match COVID booster study, the one that literally changed the FDA and CDC policies. That was her idea. She has done field research all over the world: Brazil, Tanzania, Nepal. She administered vaccines at altitudes where the nearest clinic was a 10-day hike away. She was on the frontline COVID critical care team when most people were hiding under their beds, and she volunteered for that. She's a professor of medicine at the University of Maryland School of Medicine. She's director of the Vector Borne Diseases Vaccine and Challenge Unit, a member of the National Academy of Medicine, and somehow also a master naturalist who spends her weekends doing citizen science and cleaning up local ecosystems. I've never felt more like a slouch in my life. We grew up in the remote Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Her guidance counselor, who I believe was probably my guidance counselor too, did not believe in her. Her school, our school, we went to the same school for a long time, didn't offer AP classes. She applied to medical school. This is my favorite part of all the online stalking that I did of you. She applied to medical school on a whim. And then she went to Cornell, Georgetown, Duke, and Johns Hopkins and changed the course of global health. One more thing. She's also my childhood friend. So this conversation is personal. And I need you to understand something before we get into it. I have had exactly 2 birthday parties that I remember with any real fondness. Both of them had one guest because my parents didn't like my friends, and that guest was Kirsten. So when I tell you that this woman matters to me, whether we talk never or right now, I mean it in the most literal, formative, she was literally my only friend kind of way. Dr. Kirsten Lyke, welcome to Don't Tell Me What to Do.
Quietly working here.
Quietly saving the world. Saving the world.
Hello,
Hello.
dandelions.
How are you?
I actually that really made me laugh. I don't have that memory at all. I don't
Really?
even remember being the only kid there. I
Oh,
was
yeah, you
just
totally
psyched
were.
to be at a party.
You totally were the only kid. I remember one time my parents were, like, arguing in the front seat of the car, and you and I were in the back seat of the car, and they were taking us out to dinner for my birthday, and I was just sitting there thinking, "We don't need to celebrate."
Gosh,
It was just
I don't have any memory whatsoever of that.
that's probably
All
you
I
blocked it out.
remember, I guess I just walked through life like, "La la la."
Well,
And I don't have any memory of like, I remember my childhood is bucolic. I just
mm,
remember I felt like I had a lot of friends. Maybe I
mhm.
didn't, I don't know. I
No,
felt
I
like I
was
did.
the one who didn't. You were it, apparently.
And and, I mean, I had a great upbringing, and, I guess you referenced high school and our guidance counselor not really having faith. Um, I mean, my reaction to that was, "Boy, you really don't know what you're doing. I
Mm,
know what I'm doing, and I'm just gonna go do it anyways." I mean, I really didn't put me off at all, and I don't know why I got that or
Mhm.
how that happened, but I was not put off at all. My reaction was, "Well, you really don't know what you're doing. You're supposed to be guiding people."
I love that, and obviously, not listening to this authority figure is
Yeah,
what led to your success.
yeah,
I'm super curious though, when we were kids,
yeah,
I don't think either one of us pictured this for you. Like, I don't I mean, this wasn't stuff that you talked about. So, what did little Kirsten think she was gonna do with her life?
yeah. No, I had a very, very specific, goal, and to this day, I'm not entirely sure I didn't follow the right path because I
Mhm.
was set from 2nd grade, I was gonna be an archaeologist.
Mm,
Now, there was a tangential overlap in that I thought I was like, "I'm gonna be an archaeologist in Egypt, in Africa."
mhm,
So, there was that. Maybe that was like a little seed that
mhm.
grew, but, and even, when I it is true that I applied on a whim at school, which sounds really obnoxious, honestly. I mean, so many people are that's their life dream, and they work so hard at it, and it's not easy. And it makes it sound like I'm just sort of like, you know,
Mhm. Mm. It
following the
actually
winds.
doesn't. I don't think it does. I actually think, I think that 19, 20, 22-year-olds, a lot of things are whims, right? We don't
Yeah,
talk about it that way,
yeah,
but, most young people aren't. I mean, as much as we may have a path in mind, we're not that planful.
yeah,
Young people aren't and you and I were just sort of talking about we have young people in our lives, and, I watch my child every day and think, "How do you survive? How?" It's a good thing the breathing is automatic because I would
yeah,
worry otherwise.
yeah. Well, I
Mhm.
mean, to that point, so I was going to I couldn't decide whether to apply for a PhD program in archaeology
Mm.
or, uh, um, the Peace Corps
Wow.
or, "Oh, by the way, I'll apply to med school." So it was I did 3 things.
Mhm.
I always have a plan A, B, and C because you never know if it's gonna not work out, and I don't wanna be high and dry.
Mhm.
So, maybe that's my strategy in life, I think, is I
I
always have a plan B and C going on, and so it seems to work for me. Um,
I
so
love
if
it.
something doesn't work out, I'm just pivoting to plan B as though that was the original plan, and no one thinks, no one is like, "You failed," because 'cause I'm like, "Boo, boo, 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 boo." That's my secret.
Well, I think it's a brilliant secret, but also I think, the archaeology, Peace Corps,
Yeah,
PhD in archaeology, all of that speaks to a curiosity,
yeah,
that I really admire, and I always remember you being, exactly that, just somebody who figures things out, probably while the rest of us were being total idiots. And I wasn't terribly studious, and I was not well behaved. And
yeah.
I remember you as being both of those things.
Oh,
But
yeah.
but the other thing that I also remember is, you never once made me feel like a freak for being neither. And I think that's a rare human quality. And I like to name it because one of the things that my entire career journey has, amplified for me is this idea that a lot of paths, people don't end up someplace always on purpose. Even your path, it wasn't necessarily on purpose,
Yeah,
right? And
right.
we are told from a really young age, you can map this, you like decide and head there and it will be.
Yeah,
And then we feel, a little bit of failure when it doesn't really work out that way.
right.
What so when we think about that term on a whim, you applied to medical school on a whim, which I don't
Yeah,
think is obnoxious, and then you ended up at Cornell, Georgetown, Duke, Hopkins,
yeah,
and the University of Maryland. What does that
yeah.
tell you about how life actually works?
Well, this is what, because I have a lot of students that now come to me and talk, and I mentor and I do their theses. And I always tell them, you can have a general future plan, but don't get locked in
Mhm,
because it's inevitably going to be disappointing.
mhm,
So I think it's way more valuable to follow your interest,
mhm,
whatever gives you passion.
mhm,
And, it may not necessarily turn into a career that, that's what you want to do, but be open for that opportunity door that pops up to your left, even if it
mhm,
isn't, on your little narrow focus of the future trajectory. Because I think every pivot that I've made is because some door opened and I just had a gut feeling that
mm,
it was the way to go. And, not to get like hooey, but uh, there's like an internal feeling that you get when you're on the right path.
mhm,
And when you're swimming upstream and everything is hard, and it happens to all of us, right?
mhm,
Then you're something's not right. You're not doing the right thing, or you're not in the right field, or you're not doing the right work, or you're not in the right relationship, or whatever. But your gut knows what it knows. And
mhm,
so everything that I've done um is really not planned. It was just like something popped up and I just sort of leapt there because it felt right. And it just felt
mhm,
like I wanted to do that. Um so I did it.
mhm,
And to your point growing up, like, yes, I was a rule follower.
mhm.
I was I did not speak up. I was very quiet. And
I
I still
recall.
don't speak up loudly. I'm not like I don't go rabble rouse in conferences or whatever. I just kinda quietly do my thing.
Mhm,
But, I've been in a very male-dominated world,
mhm,
with a lot of big voices, and I'm not gonna, speak louder or get
mhm,
attention by trying to overtop. So, always the strategy I think works is to undermine them by working a little harder,
mhm,
being accurate, talking to science, and
mhm,
ignoring the bluster and kinda just, like, motoring through and not paying attention, which is sometimes hard to do, but
mhm,
it's that's kinda how it works for me. And I think that's even back, I don't know where I got that, but even I was such a rule follower and I was scared of my own shadow and I never spoke
mhm,
up in class. But I always had that feeling like if someone told me something and I knew it was wrong,
mhm,
I just was like, "On out of here, moving on. That's not right. I'm doing what I wanna do." And my
mhm.
parents actually told me that I couldn't leave, um, Michigan to go to college,
Wow.
because they were worried about the money. They didn't have the
Sure,
money,
of
and
course,
they
yeah.
weren't gonna be able to pay for it, and
Mhm,
and they were like, "You can't do that. You got a full ride here, you got a blah, blah here, you could go to our hometown college, Northern Michigan, you can do
mhm,
whatever, you have a lot of opportunities, but we can't support, we don't have any money to send you to New
mhm,
York."
mhm.
So they were surprised when I accepted Cornell,
I'm sure I'm sure they started running the numbers, I'm
and it
sure.
all it all worked out.
Indeed. I actually that word whim, you applied to medical school on a whim and then accidentally became one of the most important vaccinologists in the world, and I applied to nothing on a whim. And so I ended up fine. I'm fine,
Look where
but
you are. You're like,
yeah,
I'm your guest. See?
yeah, right, right, on my work at home DIY podcast. But I do think the lesson is go, just do it, try the thing,
Yeah.
take the opportunity, head for it, and I
Well,
think that yeah,
I was gonna say, it's easy to say when you kinda know generally what you wanna do,
mhm,
where I find it is super hard, particularly for people these days, and I know my son feels this, that they don't know what to do, and they
mhm,
don't know where to go, and that's not only super scary, but it makes you kinda be a little bit angry against the world
mhm,
because it feels like it's stacked against you and you don't know what to do. So, you know, it's pretty easy to follow your passion if you know what your passion is, right?
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
now I'm not 100% sure being a doctor was ever my passion, that never really was it, like, probably wouldn't have stayed in it if I was just gonna, you know, if I was gonna be a general practitioner and see patients
mhm,
every day, I mean, that's fantastic, and if that's your passion, wonderful, that's not my passion.
mhm,
I like being on the little edge of adventure, and that's kind of probably why I've done a lot of the international diseases and have gotten into a little bit. I'm sort of like a pandemic specialist.
mhm. Wow,
That's what
there's a
they call
niche.
it. So,
Uh-huh. Wow. So I wanna touch on the guidance counselor one more time. I wonder if she's
yeah,
still alive. I wonder if she's
I
still
don't
alive. Should I say her name? No,
know.
yeah, I won't. So and our high school did not offer AP classes.
No
Um,
AP.
how much does being told no or you can't fuel you? Or how much did it and
Yeah.
does it still?
Well, I'm actually, uh, only now coming to realize that that phrase of, "No, you can't do that," is like lightning in a bottle.
Mm,
And I don't wouldn't have said that about myself, and in fact, I don't even know that I really recognize it, but, you bring it up, and actually my a colleague I work with, we sit and hang and chat in the end of the day sometimes, and he told me last week, he's like, "All they have to do is tell you no, and you're gonna figure out a way," and I was like, "That's actually" I'm a little embarrassed to say, but
mhm, mhm.
actually a little bit of truth to that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So,
That's
I
awesome.
don't know if that's awesome, but it's work I mean, that's when I'm meeting with people that might wanna collaborate with me and that we're talking about, like, something that's super difficult. I can say with complete confidence that if I believe in it, I'm gonna give you 148%, like,
Mhm.
we're gonna make it happen. It's not gonna fail.
Mhm.
We're
Wow.
gonna whatever we need to do, 'cause it's important, and I'm really in a rather good point in my career where I can choose to do things that matter to me rather than what will pay the bills.
Mhm.
So, that's a nice place to be.
Mhm. Mhm. Let's dive into conversation about your work. Um, I think, if we're gonna talk about what you actually do, I think most
Mm.
people have no idea what you actually do, and that's kind of a crime. So walk me through what it actually felt like to be in the room during the Pfizer phase 1 COVID trial,
Well,
knowing
that was a super exciting time, but there was, like, lead into that. So, to back up, my primary research focus was malaria, and I
Mm,
spent, um, 8 or 9 years going back, like, spending half the year in the field in West Africa, Mali, before cell phones. We had a fax machine, so once a week, I would get a fax
wow.
call from my boss. and I was out there with 50 men, Muslim men in rural Mali,
Wow.
which was, fantastic. I loved it, but it got old after a while. And
Mhm.
then, I was starting to doing a lot of studies here in the States, and I formed this collaboration with NIH, and that's when Ebola happened.
Mm.
And so I already had this collaboration going on with malaria, and so they trusted me, and we had a good relationship, and they knew I could get studies off the ground, difficult studies, fast. So
Mhm.
they said, "Oh, hey, do you think does Maryland have any interest in doing an Ebola study?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sure I can find someone." And they're like, "No, no. Do you want to work with us?" And I was like,
Wow.
"Wow, that's I'm not a virus person and that's not really what I do, but it's important and I'm on board. Like for sure I will help." And so that was super gratifying, and we learned that you can launch a study in, like, 3 months, which
Hmm.
normally it takes 2 to 3 years.
Wow.
And so we learned how to cut the corners, and then Zika happened a couple years later, and we learned, again, you can cut the corners and not sacrifice safety, you're just all the administrative stuff is, like, fluffy, like, it just wastes so much time, and if people are focused on what they need to do, you don't have to sacrifice safety.
Mhm.
And so all of that, getting back to your question, is what fed in to the Pfizer BioNTech trial. And I will also say I'm not a respiratory person. It's only because my boss, Kathy Newsel, who's the head of our center, had a I think a fellow colleague who was then the vice president over at Pfizer, and he reached
Mm.
out to Kathy, and Kathy was sort of leading the NIH choosing the sites that different COVID studies were going to be doing. And so she
Mhm.
couldn't literally be the only one running a Pfizer trial. So she was basically needing help. And so I kind of just stepped into that role, but it was fantastic. And we had already learned how to cut things to the quick to move it along. So from the time they asked us to get going, which was in the last week of March 2020, we vaccinated the first person March 5th or May 5th.
Wow.
So it was very fast, a month.
Wow. So what I'm hearing you say is the rest of us were stress baking sourdough and panic watching Netflix, and you were literally in a room trying to figure out how to save all of humankind, um, on a deadline, which I think
On a de
is,
yeah.
uh,
I mean, we didn't know mRNA would work. No one did. In fact, um, no one had run a mRNA trial at the time at our center.
mhm,
So Kathy and distinctly remember this because it was COVID and you're supposed to have distance. So we sat in her office. She was on one side and I was on the other side. And Pfizer gave us a lecture about, hey, this is the mRNA and this is what happens and this is what and blah 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 and the spike protein and the whole bit. So that we needed a tutorial to learn about this vaccine that they were asking us to run. And it
mm,
proved out to be, was one of the more rewarding. I guess I really thrive on, like, energy, and it was so energetic, and it felt really like we had the support of the entire Pfizer company behind us. Like,
mm,
we had 3 meetings a week to discuss where we were, who we were enrolling, what we're gonna do, what's our marching orders, and even, like, when we wrote the protocol, I would write the protocol all day, I'd hand it off to Pfizer, and their international crew would incorporate all the edits overnight, and the next
mhm,
morning when I came back, we had a fresh protocol to start. I mean, it was just 24/7 with worldwide resources. So, in no way was it me, or it was like a whole team that really got this together, and it was fantastic. So, it was a
mhm,
great experience, and, um, can't
yeah.
speak highly enough. Yeah.
Well, I, for one, am very grateful for that entire team. I want to ask you a question about mRNA and what you just said about there just not being this experience with it.
Mm,
Um, and I think that reality is what has created so much controversy around
mm,
it.
yeah,
What does the general population not know
yeah.
or not
Well,
understand about
yeah,
that
so there were
process?
20 years of research on mRNA, but it was almost exclusively in the cancer world,
Mm,
oncology, because that's where a real strength of it is you can engineer very niche vaccines that might target your specific cancer.
mm,
And that's where they were going and still are working on it. And so reformulating that to be against a disease was a little not unheard of, but definitely on the edge.
mhm,
But they knew because of experience that you can reformulate the mRNA very, very quickly. Not a protein vaccine takes a really long time. That's why Novavax
mhm,
didn't get a vaccine for over a year. It just takes a really long time to launch a protein because they have to grow it up in these big culture vats and they have to get it just right and it's super complicated and it's not like an mRNA, which is basically just printing some code and you tell the code, you just feed it the code that you want. So
mhm,
mRNAs are pretty easy. But also, when we were testing the COVID vaccine, not only did we test it in a whole slew of people at all different doses and all different age ranges and pick out like we tested low, medium, high dose, 2 doses in older people, like all different formulations, and then multiple different kinds of mRNA to get to the one that we use now. And then that was put into 44,000 plus people
mhm,
as part of studies. So by the time it got to the first nurse in New York or New Jersey or whatever that got the first
mhm.
vaccine, "Oh, this person's the first vaccine," it had been in 45,000 people. Wasn't the
Gotcha.
first person.
Mhm.
Actually, I know the first person, volunteer 001.
Wow.
And to my like, my neighbor is, I don't know exactly what she does, but she has some high ranking role in the Smithsonian.
Well,
And a couple of years ago, she said, "I hope you saved that vial. And do you have any like, experiences from the first dosing of the vaccine?" And I was like, "Me, no,
oops.
we didn't save any of that." So lesson learned. But we just didn't know. We just thought, we didn't know that we didn't expect it to be successful or in the way
Mhm,
that it was.
mhm. When you talk about, you just encode you put a little code in this vaccine. I think that
Yeah.
is I worked in tech my whole career, and I understand code. I don't think the general population really understands what you're saying. Is there a way
Yeah.
to simplify that or
Yeah.
make it
So it's
accessible?
basically like a protein. We all can
Mhm,
picture what a protein is.
mhm,
Protein is very normal in our body. Our body is made of protein. We
mhm,
love protein. Protein's important. We have to have protein. We're exposed to protein all the time. mRNA is just the code to make the protein. It's the
okay,
blueprint to make
gotcha.
the protein. So it's not unnatural. We all have
Mhm,
mRNA. It hangs out for a few hours and it disintegrates, right?
mm,
So
mhm.
when people are like, "Oh, it's hanging around and they embedded it with a chip and ugh,
That's why I
it's
wanted
just
to touch on this.
physiologically impossible. That's not
Mhm,
how it works."
mhm,
Uh and it's not unnatural because, you're gonna have COVID mRNA when the virus infects you.
mhm,
We're just getting a jump start and giving you a part of the virus that won't hurt you, that won't cause problems,
mhm.
unlike the real virus.
Sure, and would you say, like, that is the aspect of vaccines that we all sort of understand, right? You're getting a little bit of this sickness, this virus, to
Mhm.
prevent you from getting really sick from this
Yeah,
virus because your body will
right.
learn how to respond to it.
Yeah. And by
Um
and large, most of the scary side effects that we all hear about
mhm,
is our immune response exuberantly overreacting,
mhm,
which happens way more with the virus itself. It's just that, unfortunately, a few times it will happen with the vaccine itself.
mhm,
Like, for instance, the Johnson& and Johnsons, you might remember 8 out of a million people get blood clots, super
mhm,
rare side effect, and it pretty much torpedoed the vaccine
mm,
because people were scared about the safety of it. But if you smoke,
mhm,
50,000 people out of a million are gonna get a blood clot. Like, people, we gotta, like, put this into context that people can understand. People
mhm,
don't get 8 in a million. All they hear is, "Wow, there's 8 people out there that got a blood clot from this vaccine."
mhm,
Right? They don't
mhm,
think, "Oh, well, I should," smoking itself causes,
mhm.
infinitesimally larger amounts of blood clots than this very rare effect.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting because I'm still amazed at how often the conversation around the vaccine turns to, "Oh, they had a heart attack because they had the vaccine. Oh, they
Right,
had whatever this,
right.
whatever this their current situation is, we're gonna blame it on this
The
vaccine
vaccine.
from the last 6 years."
Yeah.
And I go ahead. You
Yeah,
sound
to
like you were
that point, life continues to happen.
right.
And, hypercoagulation, that's clots,
Mhm.
happen way more frequently with COVID, so way more people got heart attacks and strokes with COVID because of the COVID virus.
Mhm.
So, it's hard to combat public perception sometimes. You
Mhm.
need a unified voice, and it needs to come from the top, and it needs to come from there's a playbook which was not followed, right? There
Okay.
was conflicting information, there wasn't a unified voice. Every state had its own opinion.
Mhm.
Um, and it just spun out of control, and people don't like being told what to do
Right.
and what not to do.
Right.
You can't go to church. You have
Mhm.
to wear a mask. Like, people don't like those types of
Mhm.
instructions.
Mhm. Do you think that, the work that was done around that, yes, with the vaccine, but do you think all of us going into lockdown saved a lot of people? Like,
What
do you
we
believe
don't
that
talk
lockdown worked?
about, I mean, so the statistics are pretty clear. Um, 18 million people had a hospitalization averted in the United States because they took a COVID.
Wow.
So and then you can extrapolate that a lot of those, so we know that millions more would have died. Now, I forget what it is now, 2 point some odd million or whatever in the United States died,
Mhm.
1.8 or 2.1. I don't remember the exact statistic, but of that, it would have been so much worse. As bad as it was,
Mhm.
way more people would have died.
Mhm.
And we don't really have a good means of communicating good news very well because we're a society that's kind of driven by whatever the calamity is of the week.
Mhm.
And people just don't care, that, oh, these vaccines saved a lot of lives.
Mhm.
Vaccines themselves um, have saved 154 million lives. I mean, it's
Wow.
hard to get your head around that, but
Mhm.
um, they're the cheapest, most effective, and safest way to protect people, and somehow they've gotten a really bad rap
Mhm.
lately.
Mhm. Well, I think it's a lack of awareness and understanding, and, to the point that you made earlier, there's a playbook that wasn't followed, and I've always thought, "How could we have done this differently so
Yeah,
that we weren't," so that red and blue wasn't they weren't operating from
right.
this pro-vaccine, anti-vaccine place where it suddenly became this political issue. I wanna talk about the mix and match study, it was your idea. Um, that is huge. Can you explain, what that was and why it mattered, but also what it felt like when it changed national policy?
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's all like, I wouldn't call it my most creative idea, I just thought it was kind of common sense that we had we didn't have enough vaccine, and we all had the experience where you show up and you want Moderna, but they don't have Moderna, you have to have Pfizer or Johnson and Johnson, or I want my Pfizer, and all they had was Johnson and Johnson, and it just was like, we gotta be able to mix and match this, like, that was just common sense.
Mhm.
So, I went to my boss, who sat on a lot of committees, including the World Health Committee, and I said, "Hey, I think, this would be a really interesting idea. What do you think? Do you think anyone would wanna tackle this?" And she's like, "This is interesting, like, there's a little bit of discussion about this at the World Health Organization too." And I said, "Okay, well, we happen to have this avenue of submitting ideas. It's NIH funded. It's called the Vaccine Training and Evaluation Unit
Mhm.
Initiative, so we're one of the centers." So I put in a concept.
Hmm.
Shot down, no.
Mm.
The companies are never gonna work with you, that's not gonna happen. So I revised it, submitted it again, shot down.
Wow.
Revised it again, 3rd time, shot down.
Wow.
So Kathy, my boss, was like, "This is ridiculous." So she took it to Tony Fauci
Wow.
and his sub guy and pitched it, and next thing I know, I got a call to give a presentation to the powers that be.
Hmm.
And so, to my knowledge, like, we were one of the few groups that just kind of bypassed the normal, uh, concept, funding trajectory, and we were told, "Yeah, here's, $22 million, get your sites together, pick a few sites, and we have a protocol in 2 weeks."
Wow.
So, that's what we did. We got 10 sites, and I didn't know any of the respiratory world,
Huh.
and,
Yeah.
it was one of the best experiences. I had a really great co-director, this guy, Robert Atmar, down at Baylor University. He is a respiratory guy, and he knew everyone, and I don't know if you could have picked 2 random people that had, like, fit my strengths, his weaknesses, we just fit so perfectly.
Mhm.
We didn't know each other, and we just got along so well, and it was like it was meant to be, and we just worked, like, we just fell into a rhythm, and it worked really, really well, and it was super productive, and he did not like to give lectures
Mm.
or presentations. He would do it, but
Mhm.
he would often, like, he didn't argue, he would defer to me. I don't love to
Mhm.
give lectures either, but, I don't mind that much, and
Mhm.
so we were asked we had to give a lot of presentations. We presented to the CDC, we presented to the Canadian CDC, we presented to the UK, we presented to the World Health Organization, and we would share. But we were asked to go to, it's called a VRBPAC meeting, which is the
Mhm.
Vaccine Review Committee by the FDA.
Wow.
We were asked to present to the FDA, and they were like, "Kirsten, you wanna present?" And I'm like, "Sure." But then I didn't actually appreciate what that meant.
Uh,
Like, it is a huge deal. And so they put this training routine together to, like, get me prepared.
wow.
And then, they were feeding me all the figures and stuff, and honestly, and then I had to, like, the our committee, the mix and match committee, or our group, it was 169 people. So it wasn't just the investigators at the 10 sites, but all the nurses and the co-investigators and regulatory people and database, all the people, 169, 170. So we had a couple sessions where I presented, and then um, the directive for the whole group was to attack me
Oh, wow.
and
Wow.
just like pick it apart. And just like give me experience, like, fielding in a hostile environment, just, like, pick it
Mhm.
apart, ask me the hardest questions, and, like, after an hour of that, I was like, "Whoa, like, be nice, like, this is really hard." And so, yeah, so I really prepared for it, um, and then, the day came and the FDA, it's, like, super organized, and they let you into this you're in a background room, and I was first it was each of the major players, I think it was Pfizer, Moderna, I can't remember exactly, but a couple of the major, pharmaceutical groups were presenting first, and then they said, "Oh, and now we've added the mix and match, representative, Kirsten Lyke will be here to speak." So at that time, at no point did I think we were presenting our idea and that it was going to affect public policy. I
Mhm.
thought we were just giving our results to the FDA in a formal atmosphere. They're
Mhm.
open to the public, so everyone around the country can watch.
Mm.
So I did the little presentation. It was very scientific. It was not like saving anyone's feelings. We just gave it very, the brutal breakdown. This works, this doesn't work, this is great, this is blah blah blah. And they asked a bunch of great questions, all of which were like super easy because I'd already been through the ringer.
Mhm.
And then Peter Mark, like at the end, I was like, okay, thank you very much, bye bye. And I was like, oh well, I think I didn't make a fool of myself. I know what I was talking about. And Peter Marks, the director of the vaccine, whatever, what I forget his exact title, but at the FDA, called and he was like, "That was fantastic. That was great." And I got a lot of great feedback. And then, like, that week, the FDA approved Mix and Match. Like, I had
Wow.
no idea. And then it moved so quickly. So that was, it just, it was pandemonium press-wise and just, like,
Yeah.
speaking about it, but we weren't done, like, we ended up doing 17 different formulations and boosters, like, it kept going,
Wow.
until finally they were like, "Okay, like, we're shutting it down, can't do anymore." And we were like, "No, no, it's so much fun. Let's keep going."
I love that. I mean, I love that you had an idea and you changed federal policy. I think that's the whole story. Like, that's the whole point of this podcast, that one person with a good idea and the guts to push it through
Yeah,
can actually,
170 people, but yeah.
you know what I mean. You know what I mean. Like, it takes, the fire starter. And I think that we often don't see those people. We often don't recognize. And I think even on something as massive as a global pandemic, people have power. So you've worked on malaria, Ebola, Zika, dengue. Did I say that right? Okay,
Dengue, yep. Dengue,
I've
yep,
never had it. So
yeah.
COVID.
Den
um, so you're drawn to outbreak science and pandemics. What is it about urgency that pulls you toward the hardest problems?
I mean, I don't know. It's not like I'm inventing these vaccines. They come to
Mhm.
me
Sure.
in, so I don't really know. I guess uh one thing is I would say almost to a person that everyone I've ever worked with, um not that it's always been easy or there's different personalities, of course, but by and large, they'll all want to work together again.
Mhm.
You know, and I don't feel like there's too many cases where I've shut a door where, like, that person I just can't get along with, it's not gonna work.
Mhm.
So, that's been useful because, if you work hard and get something accomplished, then normally people are gonna come back and wanna work with you again.
Mhm.
So, uh, that certainly, it's always like one thing I've done has led to them saying, "Hey, Kirsten probably can do this."
Mm.
That's the only, like, honestly, probably the secret reason that I was the PI for that's principal investigator for the Pfizer BioNTech is because I was in the office and everyone else was working at home during COVID. And I happened to be walking in the hallway and my boss showed up.
Hey,
Like, it wasn't me. It was just that
sure,
I was there.
sure.
And
Mhm.
she's like,
Sure.
"Hey, there's a couple studies. There's this one, like, they wanna give chloroquine
Oh god.
and ivermectin," and I'm like, "No, no,
Mm.
no, I'm not on board. I'm not doing that." And she's like, "Well, there's this Pfizer one. They just called me a few minutes ago. You wanna hear about it?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do."
Mm.
So
Mhm.
it just
Well
felt better, and the other one was like, "No," and that was when everyone was saying, like, chloroquine and ivermectin, we're gonna use that to treat, and it turned out to kill people.
Well, and I don't think that's been amplified enough. I don't think people are aware, because again, as the conversation continues, albeit quieter, I still see both of those mentioned often,
Yeah,
and
bad.
ivermectin has
Yeah,
become really mainstream in the
yeah.
conversation. It's
High
shocking to me.
toxicity and has no role for most human illnesses.
Mhm. That's
In
terrifying.
vitro, like, you can find a study, a petri dish seems to be affected by ivermectin, but
Mhm.
human beings are not petri dishes, and we
Right.
don't really respond very well to ivermectin. So you probably are hurting yourself more
Yeah.
likely than helping yourself.
Make I mean, listen, there's nothing about my dog's meds that have ever made me want to take them. It's bizarre to
No.
me that
Yeah.
we've justified that.
Yeah.
So I have to go here because I can't not go here because what's happening to science funding right now is
Mm,
not abstract.
right.
It's it's personal to all of us, right? And
Yeah.
it's urgent and it affects every single person that may be listening to this. So you signed a letter to the Trump administration with almost 200 members of the national academies urging them not to gut science funding. What did you want them to understand that they clearly don't?
Well, I mean, I will say that signing a letter, by and large, I think does nothing with this
Mhm.
administration. So I think it's not impactful. But I will say that, the National Academy of Medicine I'm very proud to be in it, but they are, it's a mandate by Congress, so they are federally mandated to exist
Mm,
and can be removed. And I think by and large, they've operated in a very guarded manner.
mhm,
And, some of us have really tried to speak out and say that we have to use our voice. And I don't want to be looking back to this dark time and say, why didn't people speak out? Why
mhm,
weren't you more vocal? So I don't know. I mean, it's hard to speak in this vacuum of negative
mhm.
anti science sentiment, but
Where do you think that
to
came
the
from?
extent I can, I try.
Yeah. Where is the anti-science mindset? Where is it coming from? Do you think that we are in the midst of the dumbing down of this country and people don't understand, and don't have the curiosity or the desire to understand? Or do you think it's bad information? Or do you think there's just so many of us and we're all being inundated with so much misinformation and we're surrounded by people that can't navigate that, like, where does it come from?
Well, it's such a complex, answer, and
I know,
I can't possibly do it justice, but, I think, there's a lot of silos in the Internet, of
mhm,
course, we all know that. It's easy to be siloed into positions that you feel that, you know, you're on the end of some secret knowledge that
mhm,
the dark government is against you. There's that,
mhm,
a feeling of being disenfranchised. It's no mystery that, a lot of this is arising from people that aren't college educated and,
Mhm.
you know, rural areas. It started, I think, with QAnon.
Right.
Um, and and then it sort of intersected with, this whole kind of counterculture anti-vax movement that's been going on for decades, but
Right.
really has gotten a voice because fringe people have been put in positions of power.
Right. Yeah.
But also, the anti-vax community is, in my opinion,
Mhm.
being misled by essentially 12 individuals who put out, by and large, most of the internet anti-vax stuff. And
Really?
so it's not that it's coming from like a million different directions. It was targeted because they're making money off of you, and they
Mhm.
wanna sell you snake oil, and they
Mhm.
want you to not do like, I don't feel like people know they're getting played. It's
Mhm.
good old-fashioned snake oil salesmen out there
Mhm.
intersecting with high-tech
Mhm.
siloed internet access. And
Indeed.
so it's a very complicated, and then when our own government, it started even before COVID, our own government was planning conspiracy theories.
Mhm.
It's still doing it to an amped up formation. And then, we're being led by all these individuals who have no business being in the positions that they are. They don't have any background. I don't want to name names, but we all know
We
who
do. We
shouldn't be
do.
leading HHS, the FBI, the
Mhm.
Justice Department has been weaponized. Like, it's on and on and on, and I don't wanna go political, but it's bigger than just anti-science.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I also keep thinking about what it means to put your name on something like that,
Mm,
and, in any situation when you stand up publicly, and you're standing up to people who have real power over your funding or your institution or
yeah,
your career in this moment in time when so much is being weaponized against us. So,
yeah,
your desire to, to stand by the oath you took when you started this profession, really,
yeah,
to care for humans
yeah,
can be used against you. Are you ever afraid?
no.
Wow. Wow. And
No, I am not, and I think this is another thing, maybe it's our growing up in Upper Peninsula of Michigan, but there's just, like, this innate, well, I told you I was a rule follower,
mhm,
but maybe in the heart of that is, like, good and bad, like, you know
mhm,
I just kind of innately feel what's good and what's not right or whatever, and I'm totally willing to, well, okay, some people that are in a position that they've worked hard for or whatever are scared to lose it.
mhm.
I couldn't care less. If I
Wow.
was fired tomorrow, I have a bunch of other interests, like, maybe they'd be doing me a favor. I like what I'm doing. But
Mhm,
I've always come to a point where I'm like, "I'm gonna go for this grant, and if I don't get it, I'm gonna, like, go do something else because this is not that fun right now."
mhm,
So, I guess there's, like, you know, I'm passionate about the projects that I do, but it's not like I'm passionate about being a professor at a university. I really don't care.
mhm,
And because I don't care that much, there's some sort of freedom in, like, I can do what I feel is right. I'm a good person, so I'm not out bad mouthing people or, like,
sure,
causing problems, but I also can when I have the chance to say, "This is not right,"
mhm,
I don't care what the ramifications are because go ahead and fire me, I find a better job tomorrow that pays a lot more for sure.
mhm, mhm. You know, to that, in some of the cyber stalking that I did, you said, these are really treacherous times for academics and scientists. That was
Yeah,
something that I pulled. What keeps you
yeah.
going when the institutions that are supposed to support science are the ones that are actually undermining it?
Well, I mean, it is a little frustrating, and I don't wanna be, like, miss negativity going political, so I try not to, stay in that milieu that much,
Mhm,
But, um, I kind of feel like quietly what I'm doing, I have a kind of a passion for it. I'm not doing anything COVID right now. In fact, I'm really into working on dengue. Dengue is a huge problem in Africa, and
Well,
no one is doing anything about it. So I felt like that's my little stake that I'm
mm,
gonna try to do something about it. So that's my new passion project where I'm working on building infrastructure so we can tackle dengue in West Africa.
wow.
And so I'm just kind of focused on that. And,
Mhm.
I got a successful grant about a month ago, and I'm working on another one, and I'm building a team, and
Wow.
everyone is like, it's kind of new for everyone. So everyone's a little excited about it. So we're just kind of working in our bubble, keeping our heads down and doing what's right and trying to keep on keeping on.
Mhm. So, when and I swear I'm gonna stop talking about vaccines, I swear I will. But when we think about how politicized the vaccine conversation has become, it's really devastating. So how do you talk to people, like real people, not scientists, not your
Yeah.
peers, people at the grocery store, at the community center about vaccine science when trust is non-existent, when it's been so badly
It's
eroded?
really hard, going back to the COVID pandemic, because not
Mhm.
only was working on the vaccines, but I'm an infectious disease physician. I've always attended on the wards, and at the time, our institution made a sub, consult service, the COVID consult service, and
Mhm.
there was a select group of us volunteers. You didn't have to do it. Um, but I kinda felt like that's my profession, like, this is our moment. This is
Mhm.
how can I can't go sit at home because it might be dangerous.
Mhm.
Um, and it was a little scary, I have to not gonna lie, there are a lot of people dying, but I just knew in the moment, like, this is the moment, like, you can't let this pass, and if I can be in the center of it, put me there because this is something needs, some help.
Mhm.
I forget what the
Mhm.
question is. Where am I going with this?
I think you answered it. I think we're great. Like how yeah, I think that's fabulous. Um, so one question that I have too is how has your life outside of medicine shaped who you are as a scientist?
Hmm. Well, I think I have a good life balance, honestly. Maybe my family wouldn't always say that because I do work a lot, and that's true.
Mhm.
But, um, but I also do a lot of stuff outside work.
Mhm.
Um, and I've always been a runner. Even in high school, I
I
ran track.
remember. Mhm.
And, so I like to be in the woods running. And then I kinda ran across this program when my son went off to college. Then I was like, "Oh, I have all this extra time.
Mhm.
Gotta fill that."
Sure, yeah.
So I went back and I got my certification as a master naturalist, which was really cool. It was this program funded by Virginia, state of
Mm,
Virginia, Virginia Tech.
mm,
Um, they would select 25 people. They still do it. You can apply to, and they want people to work in Virginia. So I was kind of an exception because I live in DC.
mhm,
But it was fantastic, and it was outdoors, and it was like none of those people knew anything about me. Like they didn't know me at
mm,
all. So I was just like this quiet person taking my notes about trees
mhm.
and doing my classes, and these guys would quiz me on whatever. So I got my certification, then you owe back. So there's this whole community now of people. Like I work pretty much every weekend doing my little
Wow.
master naturalist stuff, and but the people are fantastic, and
Mhm.
my class was super close, so we developed our master naturalist um book club because we wanted to
Wow.
keep together. And so we meet every month, and then book club became, "Oh, Master Naturalist Book Club going kayaking. And then it's always like something. It's like, "Oh, my book club is going bird watching. My book club is going kayaking." And then last month, "Oh, my book club is going camping." So we're
Oh,
like
wow.
foraging out. So, it's all these really great people. None of them are in science.
Huh.
They're just like super interesting people. So I feel like that's kind of my community now.
Sure. I love everything about that, and I also think it's an interesting way like, that's your meditation, clearly. That's your
Yeah.
reset, your nervous
Yeah.
system reset,
Right.
which, so many people are talking about right now, and honestly, even with my own my son is a outdoorsy person. He
Mm,
loves hiking, climbing, all of it, and he went to a Waldorf school, which was,
yeah.
you and I
I know
went
that.
to a Catholic school,
Yep.
and, I think I was even smacked by one of the nuns.
Very
So
likely with a ruler.
exactly, exactly, and it was very rigid,
Yeah.
and he went to a school that really encouraged, creativity, but
Mhm.
also, time outside. So the Waldorf school that he went to did not, suffer from the same, the same sort of depressive circumstances as other public schools and other schools during the lockdown,
Mm.
because they put tents up outside in Minnesota with heat lamps, and these
Mm.
children went to school every day through that winter, and then in the spring, they were in a big park, and everything was outside, and,
Yeah,
uh,
that's
it was the
fantastic.
best thing that ever happened, and I think that, I think outside is what will save us if we
Yeah.
go touch grass,
Yeah.
if we actually do it. Um,
Yeah.
I know it
Or
works for
plant a
me.
garden, right, be
Mhm,
outside, yeah.
mhm,
Grow your
outside is
own food.
everything. Um, so if funding continues to dry up and political hostility towards science continues,
Yeah.
um, what does American leadership what happens to American leadership in the context of global health?
Yeah. Well, um, there's been a complete abdication of responsibility in the
Mhm,
arena of global health, and I can cite we all know, they've gutted CDC, they've fired all the top people at NIH, and they eliminated USAID. And we're seeing the consequences of that with this recent Bungie Bugyo Ebola outbreak,
mhm,
which ordinarily boots on the ground, USAID, backed up by CDC, would have been first responders leading the charge, leading the control, and we probably wouldn't have heard about it. You
mm,
know, not very
mhm,
many people pay attention to small little outbreak of Ebola in Africa, which happens
mhm.
not infrequently,
Sure.
but they don't think about, um, the human beings that are out there putting their lives at risk to
Mhm,
protect us. And so we've we've been given a lot in the United States. We have the
mhm.
privilege. Not everyone equally,
Sure.
but relative to the rest of the world, we have been given a lot, and it is on us to give back
Mhm,
more than we get, and we don't do that. We are selfish,
mhm,
and I really feel very strongly that we're not good community participants
mhm,
on a global stage because we've been given a lot and we need to give back a lot to allow other people to have the same advantages. And there's no reason that Africa, um, has to be so poverty stricken, but for they don't have the resources and they just need a boost to get the same
mhm.
chance that we do. Our approach in West Africa was never colonial. It was transfer of technology. And that's actually like, I don't think about it a lot, but when I stop to think about it, and I'm talking about it right now, we've taught so many scientists in West Africa, and they are self-sufficient, they're getting their own grants. They
Mm,
don't need me swooping in to lead the charge, like, they're my collaborators now.
mm,
Um, that doesn't always happen in East Africa, there's still a lot of, like, colonial it's better,
mhm,
um, but, we need to work there's so many resources and so much that can be done in Africa, and, you know, we need to be leading the charge of protecting the environment in Africa, not allowing other countries to completely gouge out the resources and the heavy metals and create these gold mines, and
mhm,
we need to be protecting the rainforest, we need to be protecting people from intersecting in those rainforests, which are bringing those zoonotic infections and those viruses to human beings.
mhm,
And then if we're going to have intersection, we have to have the disease fighters out there on the front lines who are putting their lives at risk to protect us all, and that's what hasn't been done. We basically have gutted that whole infrastructure. And for those poor people that put their lives at risk every day, to be told that it's fraud, waste, and abuse, and
yes,
therefore you're fired,
yeah,
there's a lot of hostility and anger out there.
mhm,
US used to give I'm going on my soapbox,
please do.
$1.4 billion to the Democratic Republic of Congo yearly,
Mm,
and last year we gave 21 million. They don't have the resources, which means motorcycles to get to the Ituri district where the militants reside, where this outbreak is occurring. They don't have the IV fluids. They don't have, like, the basic necessities, let alone try to diagnose a novel virus from 1,000 miles away in Kinshasa. So, I don't think there's a full appreciation of the infrastructure that was there and what they
mhm,
did to protect us and why
mhm.
that was important.
So, that what they did to protect us, I think, what you mentioned earlier that you think that we are selfish. I could not agree more, and I think we're also seeing, this behavior from folks where they really don't care about anything unless it impacts them, right? I mean, that I don't know that I've lived through a time where that's ever been more obvious and more
Yeah,
terrifying, and for that to that, I'm curious, how is this shift gonna impact those of us here safe in the US? Like, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but what are we doing to ourselves? Where do people need to wake up so that
yeah,
they recognize that there is a benefit for us when we take care
yeah.
of each other?
I'm not sure we're gonna reverse this.
Wow.
I feel like it's a fraying of society.
Wow.
Um, so, you know, in small communities, you support each other,
Mhm.
but it's easy with overpopulation in big cities to not feel like you're part of a community.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of, embedded structural racism that occurs. That's not a dirty word, that's the truth.
Mhm.
Um, that affects health, it affects where you're going to college, it affects every aspect of life. Now, vaccines. We depend on herd immunity, which means we all play a role
Mhm.
to get to herd immunity. Now, for someone on the quote religious right
Mhm.
to say that I'm infringing on their right not to have a vaccine, I guess my response is okay, the vaccine is for you. That's
Mhm.
true. But it's also for your grandma.
Mhm.
It's to protect grandma. And it's also to protect Sue down the street who has acute myeloid leukemia and she can't mount a response with a vaccine. So we need everyone around her to take a vaccine so she doesn't die from
Mhm.
something that's preventable. So your choice isn't just affecting you, it's affecting everyone around you. And I don't understand why that message is not communicated or why people can't understand that, yes, you're getting protected against COVID, even if you don't believe it, that it's dangerous. But there are other people who are vulnerable that
Mhm.
you are doing your bit. You're doing your little bit, which is not a big ask, you
Mhm.
know, to help your community.
Mhm.
Then that's like, we're in a situation where we're kind of getting this weird masculine uh crusader mentality of religion, which seems to be missing the point of religion. Isn't the point of
Mhm.
religion to like support each other and have a future and be helping our communities? And how
Mhm.
can we do that?
Mhm.
Um, this whole
Are you still
judgy
a person
judge
of
is
faith? Are you a person of faith?
no,
Okay,
no, I'm
that's
not.
yeah.
I'm spiritual in my own little way, but
Mhm.
that doesn't necessarily mean I believe of a higher power.
Mhm.
I
I
don't
asked
know.
because Catholic school, right?
Yeah,
Like,
no, right,
we were
no, no, I'm
indoctrinated.
not formally I'm not religious at all. I
Mhm.
have a lot of feelings about organized religion, but
Me
at the
too.
same time, I totally accept, like, I don't really if you wanna be religious, go for it,
Whatever
but
you need.
just don't tell other people what to do,
Mhm.
focus on improving yourself. It's not that
Yeah.
hard,
Don't
right? You don't have
tell
to be judgy judge and tell everyone. There's
right.
no benefit to telling that person down the street that they can't do whatever they want to do as long as it's not hurting you. And is it hurting
Mhm.
you that they need to get an abortion because they have no money? They're
Mhm.
straying into all these new rules that people are like, no, you can't do that.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm. And
it's the same people who won't take a vaccine. Like it's just
right. Right.
crazy. It doesn't make sense to me.
Y
So I'm hoping that we get some common sense back, but I don't think we're heading
yeah.
in the right direction.
Yeah, and I could talk to you for 7 hours, and I wanna be really, respectful of time even though we've already gone over and I've already been disrespectful. I
I'm not
have
even looking at time. This is
okay,
early.
excellent, excellent. I love workaholics. What gives you hope right now? Yeah, sorry.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've always just done my little bit and tried to,
Mhm.
like, what gives me hope? Well, I love that I saw a bunch of warblers last weekend. It's just little things, like, I can't really change the world, but I can keep my little bit of it calm and peaceful and happy and surround my self with people I like.
Mhm,
So that's kinda what I do.
mhm.
Um, I don't know.
I appreciate that. So I end all of these podcasts with a series of rapid fire questions, just where
Okay.
I'm looking for one word. Let's not be thoughtful. Let's not be like just whatever comes to mind.
Okay.
Um, what is the vaccine you're most proud of in terms of your involvement? What's the vaccine you're most proud of? And you can say all of them. Well, at least I have
They're
one
all my
hard question.
babies. I know we're spending so much
Mhm.
time on it. I guess, I mean, probably the mix and match isn't a specific
Yes.
vaccine, but it's maybe what I'm known for
Mhm.
the most.
Sure. And the scariest moment in your career?
Well, it was pretty darn scary in the early days of COVID. I had 138 people on my service, and I'm really prideful. This is not a one word answer.
It's okay,
Sorry.
I'll take it.
Um, I'll just leave it there. I can go on, but I had a story, but I didn't listen to the directions.
No,
Move
it's
on.
fine, I like the stories. Um, what is the one disease you most want to eradicate in your lifetime?
Mm. Well, of course, malaria is near and dear to my heart. Do I
Mhm.
think we're gonna eradicate it? No, it's worse now, actually. We're not
Oh,
doing a
wow.
great job. So I guess malaria.
And
It
where are
is
we at?
actually hmm?
Where are we at with malaria, the vaccine?
There's 2 vaccines they're rolling out, but the 4-year efficacy is 37%. It's just a first
Mm,
generation. We need better vaccines.
mhm. Yeah, I'm breaking my own rules, and I'm not asking you
I
the
know,
the
I'm
booklet,
sorry. These
sorry.
aren't really easy to I have
Yeah,
to
I know, I
explain
know.
why.
Yeah, here's one. This one I think could be done. Lab coat or field gear?
Field cure,
Mhm. Um, one word for where American science is right now.
downbeat.
Hmm. One word for where it could be.
Phoenix is rising.
I like it. The best advice you have ever ignored.
Uh, you're not gonna be able to get into a school out east, I suppose.
Wow. What would guidance counselor era Kirsten think of you now?
I don't know. Annoyed?
Hell no. Hell no. You need to come home for the reunion so you can just gloat. Like,
That
just
would be so obnoxious.
I'll
That is
do it
the
for you.
last thing I would ever do.
I know, I know. But
Honestly,
we've
no,
missed
I
you.
don't wanna talk about myself. That
Yeah,
would
I
not
know, that's so obvious, and there's so much here. So, I'm gonna I'm gonna write the book. Um, thank you for being here, Dr. Kirsten Lyke, everybody. Um, everybody that's listening, thank you all for being here, but thank you, Dr. Lyke. My dear old friend, one of 2 people at my birthday party that you actually and the other one was me. Member of the National Academy of Medicine, quiet world changer. I'm so proud to know you, it's sort of embarrassing. So thank you for making the time to be on the show, and thank you everybody for listening to Don't Tell Me What to Do. If this episode moved you at all, please share it. Send it to somebody who needs to hear that their guidance counselor was wrong, and we'll see you next time.
I'm breaking all your rules.